r/NoSleep. Posted by u/s4nj. The Homestead, Part 3, I found some weird stuff in my garden, and got some killer nightmares. I stared perplexedly at the lead block. What was it even? And what was it doing on my land, in the garden? That was odd. And it had some runes on it at that, which looked odd. Look, I'm no expert when it comes to runes, but these aren't like anything I've ever seen. Oh, and this wasn't even accounting for the sheer otherworldliness and magic that this thing emanated. Just looking at it made my hair stand on end. Look, it wasn't creepy or anything, just odd. And it had some stuff beneath it, so maybe that would help shed some light on its purpose. I lifted the block and put it aside, before scooping out the objects underneath it. The first object I saw was a scarecrow-like doll with bits of bone sticking out of it. And the needles. There were so many needles poked into the doll. I tried yanking one out, but the more I pulled, the more it resisted. I decided to let the needles be because this doll was terrifying. It gave me the creepy crawlies just looking at it, let alone handling it. And this may have been irrational, but it was like the doll was staring straight at me. Well, I would let that one sit in the pit for now. Next, I found a dagger next to the doll. Well, finally a sensible choice, given all the creepy shit here. It had a tar black hilt, as well as an obsidian blade. Unlike the other objects, it was simple, without any adornments or runes or anything of the sort on it. So, what is it used for, and how am I supposed to use this? I thought to myself. Well, only one way to find out. Using the dagger, I traced a square on the dirt just outside the garden plot. The square emanated a dim blue light for a second, before returning to being a square in the dirt. I touched the square, stepped in the square, kicked the air and all that, but whatever I did, the square did nothing. So, it could draw runes or something. Well, that could be useful. Well, unless something was buried deeper in, there was nothing left to find there. I pondered bringing in everything for a moment but decided to just leave everything except the dagger in the pit. Look, nothing against magical items, but that doll was creepy as all hell. It would be better off in the pit with the rune tablet on it. And because I enjoyed staring at rune tablets for days and frantically searching up things on Google, I took a photo of the runes on the tablet, before going back to my house to deal with these things. Hell, I even checked my security cameras to see if someone put it in as a prank. I mean, I live in a rural-ass forest area with no human neighbors that I knew of, but there was a possibility. After all of this, I was led to the conclusion that someone put the things there for a good reason. Fast forward to a few nights later, and I was still very confused about this entire thing. I had been trying to research the runes for days, and the only breakthrough I had made was that the second rune was a Viking rune that corresponded to the Latin letter O. Like, that was it. The others were an enigma. Anyways, I looked up some Unicode searching and found some typable symbols closest to the runes, so here goes. I do hope you fine Redditors can help me figure these out. As I puzzled over the runes, I heard a loud meow coming from the outside of my house, and suddenly stiffened up. I deduced that it was the black cat, and got immediately terrified. Well, what can I say? It is kinda rational to be afraid of a cat-like cryptid. As the meowings continued, I grasped at my pistol, got up and tiptoed slowly towards the hall, where I then took a peek at the door. It was then that I realized that I had left the door open. Well, I just had to hope that the kitty had good intentions. Right now, my best option was to hide in one of the rooms with a weapon and pray. Technically, I should have gone into the basement and then tried things, but something in me trusted the cat to not harm me. After all, it did kinda help me out in the fight against the creature. Instead, I went into my bedroom and sat there. The cat meandered its way into my house through the door I had conveniently left open, and sniffed cautiously at the air before continuing in. As it paced the length of the living room, it started making MRR sounds, as though it was searching for something. Or maybe someone. When it reached the area where the kitchen was, it pawed at the entrance for a moment, before continuing in. Maybe it was looking for food? Then, it turned around and entered my room, and that's when I realized it was looking for me. I raised my gun, expecting some sort of altercation. Instead, the cat walked in and meowed a short meow at me. Seeing my lack of response, it narrowed its eyes and began rubbing past my legs, before circling them repeatedly. At that point, I still didn't know what it had in mind for me. It continued circling me, making short meows now and then while looking for me. From somewhere at the back of my head, I remembered the rule about petting the cat when it asked for it, and relief flooded over me. After all, I loved cats, and to be honest, I didn't want to do anything to it. I bent down and began petting the cat, and its sounds changed to satisfied purrs. I scratched its ears and ran my hands through its soft silky fur. After around half an hour of petting the cat, I climbed into my bed with the cat and fell asleep as it pressed its head against my chest. Sweet dreams? Oh, I wish. For that night was when the nightmares started. I was a creature of demonic hate, running through the forest. Trees bent and branches splintered as I advanced towards a small creature running with its 2 feet. As I thundered through the forest, I looked closer, and my prey turned out to be a woman, possibly Native American. As she ran, I easily tore through the forest and shredded her left leg with my long, sharp claws. Refusing to give up, she crawled away from me at a rapid pace. I bent down and took a huge bite out of her back again and again and again until she eventually lay dead, bloody and bruised. She was mangled beyond all recognition as I sucked her soul out. With a startle, I woke up drenched in sweat. I looked around in panic and breathed a heavy sigh of relief when I realized that I was still in my cabin and that it was all a dream. I've had a lot of terrible nightmares, but this was the worst by far. After that, I couldn't sleep, and the sun was slowly rising. I decided to treat myself to a nice breakfast at the nearby cafe, as a little treat after that harrowing nightmare. After another day of chores and trying to figure things out, I had yet another dream. Again. This time, I was part of a group of hunters. They sat around a fireplace, speaking in a language that was foreign to me. Yet, I could understand their speech. "What do we do about the Ungason?" one asked the group. Another person on the opposite of him replied, "It is a dangerous beast. There is only one way to confine the beast, and that is to strike it with an obsidian blade dipped in the blood of man, and then bury a lead plaque of runes in the closest plot of clearland." Immediately, a person at the edge of the campfire said, "And from where have you been learning this witchcraft, Louis?" Before Louis could respond, an argument broke out, and everything went dark. Once again, I was woken up at an untimely hour. Alright, I admit that the dream was merely confusing, not terrifying or anything. The only thing I could glean from this was that someone had found out a way to banish the monster, or what they called the Ungason. But the dreams didn't stop here, for I had a final dream as of now. The man called Louis and a few others I had seen in the encampment in my previous dream were quietly trekking through the forest, with one of their party holding a lamp. Remember, when it comes near, stab it with the obsidian blade, for it will flee. I have taken great pains to find this information from the natives, who have long since fled, Louis reminded the group. They continued stalking quietly for a few minutes until a man cried out loud, his belly slashed by the long claws of the Ungason. They fought it for a few minutes, but alas, they were vastly outpowered by the beast. Suddenly, taking his opportunity, Louis leapt at it with the obsidian blade and stabbed it square in its groin, or whatever passed for it. As a final fuck you, it ripped apart Louis's chest with its claws. Pity. I quite liked Louis. The dream then shifted to what I realized was my garden, and I saw them bury the lead tablet and the dagger. Next to them, Louis was holding in his organs while slowly dying. Panting, he said, "He who disturbs this tablet releases the beast." Never forget that, to his friends before finally dying, as blood poured out of his body like a river. Finally, his friends left the scene. I woke up sweating buckets and panting heavily. I realized what I had done. By briefly examining the tablet, I had inadvertently released the Ungason. And if I didn't stop it, it would go out and cause unimaginable havoc.